The rain had been falling for hours when Marcus Green, owner of Greenleaf Grocers, first noticed the small figure huddled beneath the awning of his store. Through the streaked windows, he could see it was a boy, no more than 10 years old, thin and soaked to the bone, his oversized jacket hanging from bony shoulders as he clutched a plastic bag to his chest. Every night for a week, the boy appeared like clockwork at closing time, waiting in the shadows until most of the lights went out, then disappearing into the dense woods behind the shopping center with whatever meager items he'd managed to afford. What terrible secret would Marcus discover when he finally gathered the courage to follow the child into those dark woods that night? If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more tales that inspire and uplift. Marcus wiped down the glass counter for the third time, his eyes continually drifting to the front windows. The boy hadn't shown up yet tonight. For nearly 2 weeks, the child had appeared like clockwork at 8:45 p.m., just 15 minutes before closing, but tonight the space beneath the awning remained empty, and Marcus felt an unexpected hollowness in his chest. "You looking for someone?" Elaine asked, her weathered hands expertly counting the register. At 62, she'd been with Greenleaf Grocers longer than Marcus had owned it. "No," he lied, then sighed. "Yes, actually, that boy, the skinny one, with the too big jacket, he's usually here by now." Elaine's lips pressed into a thin line. "The one who buys nothing but clearance items and counts pennies? I've seen him. Something's not right there." "I know," Marcus said, running a hand through his graying hair. "I tried approaching him yesterday, but he bolted like a scared rabbit. The memory of it still stung." Marcus had only managed 3 steps toward the boy before he'd vanished, darting between parked cars and disappearing into the tree line beyond the lot. The bell above the door jingled, startling them both. But it was only Mrs. Hendricks picking up her weekly prescription. As Marcus helped the elderly woman, his mind wandered to the conversation he'd had with his sister last Sunday. "You need to stop living like a ghost, Mark," Diane had said over their monthly dinner. "It's been 2 years since Caroline passed. She'd want you to live again." He'd nodded, pushed food around his plate, and changed the subject. How could he explain that the grocery store was all he had left? That the rhythm of opening and closing, of stocking shelves and chatting with customers, was the only thing keeping him upright? The sudden movement outside caught his eye. There, partially hidden by the recycling bins, stood the boy. Their eyes met through the glass, and for a moment neither moved. Then the child turned and sprinted toward the woods, a small plastic bag clutched in his hand. "Elaine, can you lock up?" Marcus called, already reaching for his jacket. "Where are you?" "I won't be long," he promised, hurrying toward the door. "There's something I need to check." The evening air hit him with its spring chill as he stepped outside. Small puddles from yesterday's rain reflected the parking lot lights. He hesitated only a moment before following the path the boy had taken. At the edge of the woods, Marcus stopped. The darkness between the trees seemed impenetrable, the path nothing more than a narrow break in the underbrush. He hadn't been in these woods since moving to Millfield 12 years ago. Caroline had always wanted to explore them, to map the trails for weekend hikes, but somehow they'd never found the time. A twig snapped somewhere ahead. Marcus squinted, barely making out small footprints in the soft earth, fresh impressions leading deeper into the forest. "Hello," he called, his voice sounding foreign in the stillness. "I just want to talk." No response came, except the distant call of an owl. Marcus took out his phone, switching on its flashlight. The beam cut weakly through the gathering darkness, illuminating just enough ground for him to see where to step. Common sense told him to turn back, to call the police or child services, and let professionals handle whatever was happening. But something, perhaps the memory of the fear in the boy's eyes, propelled him forward. He followed the footprints until they disappeared on harder ground. Stopping to get his bearings, Marcus realized he couldn't see the lights of the shopping center anymore. The forest had swallowed him, and with each passing minute, the temperature seemed to drop further. Eventually, he admitted defeat. The boy was gone, at least for tonight. As Marcus turned to retrace his steps, he noticed something, white caught on a branch, a small piece of plastic bag torn off in haste. Tomorrow, he decided, tomorrow he would be better prepared. The following evening, Marcus arrived at the store 2 hours earlier than his usual shift. He nodded to the day manager and headed straight to the stockroom, where he began filling a backpack with supplies, a flashlight with fresh batteries, a first aid kit, bottled water, and his rain jacket. He hesitated by the food shelves, then carefully selected items that wouldn't spoil and required no preparation: granola bars, dried fruit, nuts, and shelf-stable milk boxes. "Planning a camping trip, Kevin?" the teenage stockboy asked as he passed with a dolly of paper products. "Something like that," Marcus replied, adding a small fleece blanket to the pack. As he worked his regular shift, Marcus kept glancing at the clock. Each minute seemed to drag as he rang up customers, restocked shelves, and tried to maintain normal conversations. His mind, however, remained fixed on the mysterious boy and whatever might await in those woods. "You seem distracted today," Elaine observed as they worked side by side at the registers during the evening rush. Marcus shrugged. "Just thinking." "About that boy?" When Marcus didn't answer, she continued, "I called my daughter last night. She works for social services over in Brunswick County." His hands froze over the register. "You what?" "Don't look at me like that," Elaine said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "A child wandering alone at night, buying the cheapest food possible. Something's wrong, Marcus. There are proper channels for these things." "Did you give them a description?" Marcus asked, his chest tightening. "No, not yet. But Lisa said I should report it if I see him again." Marcus nodded mechanically, relief mingling with a renewed sense of urgency. If Elaine was already considering official involvement, time was running short. Whatever was happening with the boy, Marcus needed to understand it before well-meaning bureaucracy potentially made things worse. At precisely 8:43, Marcus spotted the now familiar figure approaching the store. The boy wore the same oversized jacket, his small frame hunched against the evening breeze. This time, instead of watching from inside, Marcus quietly exited through the back door and circled around to the edge of the parking lot. He observed as the boy entered the store, clutching what appeared to be a handful of coins. Through the windows, Marcus could see him carefully selecting items from the clearance bin, counting his money repeatedly. 7 minutes later, the boy emerged with his meager purchases and immediately headed toward the woods, glancing over his shoulder several times. Back inside, Marcus approached Elaine. "I need to leave early tonight. Family emergency." She raised an eyebrow but didn't question him further. "I'll close up. Go on." Marcus grabbed his prepared backpack from the office and slipped out the back door again. The weight of what he was doing, essentially stalking a child through the woods at night, wasn't lost on him. If anyone saw him, how would he explain himself? But the alternative, doing nothing while a child potentially lived in dangerous conditions, seemed worse. The path into the forest was easier to follow with proper preparation. His flashlight illuminated the narrow trail that seemed well-traveled despite its obscurity. Small markers became visible now that he knew to look for them: a rock placed at a certain angle, a bent branch, a piece of colored string tied around a trunk. Someone had created a navigation system through these woods. As Marcus ventured deeper, the sounds of the shopping center faded completely. His breath formed small clouds in the cooling air. According to the weather report, temperatures would drop into the low 40s tonight, much too cold for anyone, especially a child, to be outside. The crunch of his footsteps seemed thunderous in the quiet forest. He tried to move more carefully, not wanting to announce his approach. 20 minutes into his journey, the trees began to thin slightly, and Marcus caught the faint glow of light ahead. He switched off his flashlight and crept forward, his heart pounding. A moment of doubt seized him. Was he making a terrible mistake? Should he have called authorities instead? But it was too late for second thoughts now. Through the branches, he could make out a small clearing ahead, and what appeared to be a makeshift shelter. Taking a deep breath, Marcus prepared to step forward and discover what secret these woods had been hiding. Marcus crouched behind a large oak tree, his breath shallow as he observed the clearing. The makeshift shelter was more sophisticated than he'd expected, a small tent, reinforced with tarps and branches, positioned beneath the protective canopy of a massive pine tree. A careful arrangement of rocks circled a small fire pit, though no flames burned tonight. The boy was nowhere in sight, but the shelter's entrance flap moved slightly in the breeze. Marcus remained still, unsure of how to proceed. Announcing himself might terrify the child, but sneaking closer felt predatory and wrong. A twig snapped behind him. Marcus whirled around to find himself face to face with a boy who held a sharpened stick like a spear, his thin face a mask of terror and determination. "Why are you following me?" the boy demanded, his voice cracking with fear despite his attempt at bravery. Marcus slowly raised his hands. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm Marcus Green. I own the grocery store where you shop." "I know who you are," the boy said, the stick trembling in his grip. "What do you want?" "I was worried about you," Marcus answered truthfully. No one should be out in these woods alone, especially not at night. The boy's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "I'm fine. Go away." "Are you staying out here by yourself?" Marcus gestured toward the shelter. When the boy didn't respond, he continued. "It's supposed to be cold tonight. Below freezing." "I have blankets," the boy said defensively, "and I know how to make a fire." Marcus nodded, noticing how the child's knuckles were red and chapped, his fingernails rimmed with dirt. "What's your name?" A long pause followed. "Sam," the boy finally muttered. "Sam," Marcus repeated. "I brought some food and a better flashlight." He slowly shrugged off his backpack and set it on the ground between them. "You don't have to talk to me. You can take this stuff, and I'll leave if that's what you want." Sam's gaze darted between Marcus and the backpack, hunger and suspicion warring in his expression. "Why would you give me stuff?" The question hit Marcus harder than expected. In Caroline's days as a social worker, she'd often spoken about children who couldn't trust kindness because they'd never known it without strings attached. "Because it's cold and you're just a kid," Marcus said simply. "No one should have to sleep in the woods alone." A distant rumble of thunder punctuated his words. The storm that had been threatening all day was finally moving in. "That's going to be a bad one," Marcus observed, glancing at the darkening sky visible through the tree canopy. "My offer stands. Take the supplies. But I'd feel a lot better if you came back with me to the store until the storm passes." Sam lowered his stick slightly. "I'm not going anywhere with you." "Fair enough." Marcus unzipped the backpack, showing its contents. "At least take this stuff. The blanket's waterproof on one side, and there's enough food for a couple of days." Hesitantly, Sam took a step forward. "You'll really just leave it and go?" "If that's what you want," Marcus confirmed, though the thought of leaving the boy alone with a storm approaching made his stomach clench. Sam seemed to consider this, then pointed, back the way Marcus had come. "You should go now. It's easy to get lost when it's raining." Marcus nodded and took a few steps back. "I'll be at the store tomorrow if you need anything else." He placed a business card on top of the backpack. "My cell number's on there too." He turned to leave. Fat raindrops began to patter through the leaves above. The timing couldn't have been worse. The path, difficult to navigate in clear conditions, would become treacherous in a downpour. Marcus glanced back once to see Sam hurriedly dragging the backpack toward the shelter. The boy paused at the entrance, looking back at Marcus with an unreadable expression before disappearing inside. The return journey was exactly as difficult as Marcus had feared. The rain quickly turned from a sprinkle to a deluge, and the forest floor became slick with mud. Twice he lost the trail, having to backtrack to find the subtle markers. His clothes were soaked through within minutes, and the darkness seemed to thicken with each passing moment. By the time the lights of the shopping center parking lot came into view, Marcus was shivering and covered in mud, but his physical discomfort paled compared to the weight of what he'd discovered and what he'd done by leaving Sam alone in the storm. Marcus couldn't sleep that night. Every crash of thunder had him picturing Sam alone in that flimsy shelter, wondering if the tarps would hold against the driving rain. Twice he picked up his phone to call the police, and twice he set it down. Again, without knowing Sam's full story, involving authorities might cause more harm than good. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind a washed-clean sky and the scent of wet earth. Marcus arrived at the store early, distracted and exhausted. He found himself staring at the woods throughout his shift, wondering if Sam was all right. "You look terrible," Elaine remarked as she arrived for her afternoon shift. "Didn't sleep?" "Not much," Marcus admitted. "That boy didn't come in last night," she said, eyeing him carefully. "And you left early? Something you want to tell me?" Marcus busied himself with organizing the counter. "Just had some things on my mind." Elaine wasn't easily deterred. "Marcus Green, I've known you for 10 years. You're a terrible liar." She lowered her voice. "Did you follow that boy?" The direct question caught him off guard. "I wanted to make sure he was safe." "And? He's living in the woods, Elaine, in a tent." The admission brought a fresh wave of guilt. "I left him some supplies, but with that storm last night," Elaine's expression softened. "Oh, Marcus, you should have called someone." "I know, but there's something about his situation. He's terrified of being found. I need to understand why before involving authorities." She sighed, clearly conflicted. "My daughter says these situations are complicated. Sometimes kids run from something worse than being alone." After a moment she added, "You're going back, aren't you?" Marcus nodded. "Take more supplies," she said, surprising him. "There's canned food in the donation bin we could spare, and my grandson left a sleeping bag at my place last summer. I'll bring it by." Relief washed over him. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. If that boy doesn't agree to proper help soon, I'm making the call myself." The rest of the day crawled by. When closing time approached with no sign of Sam, Marcus's worry deepened. As soon as the last customer left, he gathered the supplies Elaine had brought and headed for the woods once more. Daylight made the journey easier. The path, though muddy from the rain, was clearly visible. Marcus noticed details he'd missed. In the darkness, how certain branches had been deliberately trimmed back, how small piles of stones marked turns in the trail. Sam had created an ingenious navigation system. The clearing looked different in the afternoon light. The damage from the storm was immediately apparent. One of the tarps had partially collapsed, and the ground around the shelter was littered with fallen branches. The fire pit contained only soaked ashes. "Sam?" Marcus called, approaching cautiously. "It's Marcus from the store." No answer came. He moved closer to the shelter and noticed the backpack he'd left was gone. Had Sam taken it and fled to a new location? Or had someone else found this place? Peering into the tent, Marcus found it empty but clearly inhabited. A thin sleeping mat lay atop a bed of pine branches. A plastic crate held neatly folded clothes, far too few for any child. Another contained school books and notebooks, suggesting Sam was still attending school somewhere. That, at least, was something positive. If he was in school, there was some normalcy in his life, some adult supervision, even if he returned to the woods each night. Marcus set down the new supplies just inside the tent entrance, making sure they'd be protected if it rained again. On impulse, he pulled out a small notepad from his pocket and wrote a brief message. "Sam, brought more supplies. If you need anything else or want to talk, I'm at the store until 9 p.m. most nights. Or you can call me." Marcus, he hesitated, then added, "P.S. Your path markers are really clever. I would have gotten lost without them." As Marcus turned to leave, something caught his eye. A small, carved wooden figure placed carefully on a flat stone near the fire pit. He knelt to examine it, a tiny bird with wings outstretched, surprisingly, detailed for its small size. Next to it lay his business card from yesterday, slightly damp but deliberately placed. A message, perhaps? Or simply a child's possession? Marcus left it untouched and made his way back through the woods, thoughts swirling. Sam was skilled, resourceful, and clearly intelligent. But no child, no matter how capable, should be living alone in the forest. Tomorrow, Marcus decided, he would come earlier. He would wait if necessary. Somehow, he needed to gain Sam's trust before Elaine made good on her promise to call authorities, or before the next storm hit. The next day, Sam didn't appear at the store. nor the day after. By the third day of absence, Marcus found himself pacing behind the counter, checking the entrance so frequently that customers noticed. "Expecting someone?" Mrs. Hendricks asked. As she collected her weekly groceries. "Just distracted," Marcus replied, forcing a smile. After closing, he returned to the woods with fresh supplies. The clearing showed signs of recent activity. The collapsed tarp had been fixed, and the fire pit contained fresh ashes. The supplies he'd left were gone, replaced by another small wooden carving. This time a fox, its tail curled around its body. A message from Sam acknowledging the gifts without direct contact. For a week, this strange exchange continued. Marcus would leave food, batteries, a rain poncho, or other necessities. In return, he'd find intricate wooden carvings waiting for him. But Sam remained elusive, seemingly timing his visits to the camp when he knew Marcus would be working at the store. "This can't go on indefinitely," Elaine said one evening as they restocked shelves. "Winter will be here before you know it. That tent won't keep out December cold." "I know," Marcus sighed. "But what am I supposed to do? Call the police? Have them drag him away to who knows where?" "You could try not announcing your visits," she suggested. "You leave supplies at the same time every day. He's probably watching and waiting for you to leave." The observation was so obvious that Marcus felt foolish for not considering it. That night he changed his routine. Instead of heading to the woods after closing, he asked Elaine to lock up and slipped out 2 hours earlier, during the store's quietest period. The spring evening was mild, birdsong still filling the air as Marcus made his way through the now familiar path. He moved quietly, Elaine's words echoing in his mind. Had Sam been watching him all this time? As he approached the clearing, Marcus heard something that made him stop in his tracks. Humming. A child's voice, soft but clear in the forest stillness. He crept closer, careful to avoid stepping on twigs or rustling leaves. Through the trees he could see Sam sitting cross-legged by the fire pit, carefully carving wood with a small pocket knife. The boy looked different than Marcus remembered, less guarded, his small face relaxed in concentration as he worked. He was humming what sounded like a pop song, occasionally singing a few words before returning to the melody. The domesticity of the scene struck Marcus powerfully. This was just a child, creating his own moments of normalcy in an impossible situation. For a moment, Marcus was transported back 15 years, to his sister's backyard, where his nephew had sat in much the same position, tongue caught between his teeth as he built elaborate structures with Legos. The memory of his own childhood followed, how he'd felt excluded and unwanted after his parents' divorce, how his father's new family had left no room for weekend visits. Caroline had been the first person to make him feel like he belonged somewhere. A branch cracked beneath Marcus's foot, shattering the quiet. Sam's head snapped up, the knife and carving instantly hidden behind his back. His eyes, wide with alarm, scanned the forest edge until they locked onto Marcus. "It's just me," Marcus said quickly, stepping into the clearing with his hand slightly raised. "I didn't mean to sneak up on you." Sam's shoulders remained tense. "You usually come later." "I? No, I wanted to actually see you this time." Marcus held up the bag of supplies. "Can I sit down?" After a moment's hesitation, Sam nodded, though he shifted to put more distance between them. "You haven't been to the store this week," Marcus said, settling on a log across the fire pit. "Been busy." Sam's gaze kept darting to the woods, as though calculating escape routes. "With school?" The boy's eyes narrowed. "How do you know I go to school?" "I saw your textbooks," Marcus admitted, "the day after the storm." "You went through my stuff?" Anger flashed across Sam's face. "No, I was worried when you weren't here. I looked in the tent to see if you were okay." Sam scowled but seemed to accept the explanation. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. "The carvings are amazing," Marcus finally said. "Where did you learn to do that?" A faint flush colored Sam's cheeks. "My grandpa taught me, before he died." It was the first personal detail Sam had voluntarily shared, and Marcus felt a small surge of hope. "He taught you well." Sam's fingers reached toward the hidden carving, then stopped. "Thanks for the food and stuff," he mumbled. "You're welcome." Marcus hesitated. "Sam, can I ask, where are your parents?" The question hung in the air like a physical thing. Sam's face closed off immediately, his momentary openness vanishing. "Don't have a dad," he finally said, eyes fixed on the ground. "Mom's sick." Marcus chose his next words carefully. "Is she in the hospital?" Sam gave a tight nod. "And there's no one else taking care of you? No relatives or friends?" "We don't have anyone," Sam said, his voice hardening, "and I don't need anyone. I'm doing fine on my own." Despite the brave words, Marcus could see the boy's hands trembling slightly. "How old are you, Sam?" 12, almost 13. The way he straightened his shoulders suggested the age was significant to him. Old enough in his mind to be independent. "That's still young to be on your own," Marcus said gently. "Better than the alternative." Sam's jaw set stubbornly. "Which is?" "Foster care." The words came out like a curse. "I've been there before, when Mom was sick last time. Never again." The vehemence in the boy's voice told volumes. Marcus had heard enough from Caroline's work to know that while many foster homes were loving and supportive, others were anything but. "Was it that bad?" he asked quietly. Sam's eyes flashed. "They separated us. Said my mom wasn't fit and I'd be better off without her. The family they put me with already had 4 other kids. They just wanted the money." His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "The dad drank. The mom pretended not to notice when he got angry." Marcus felt sick. "Did he hurt you?" Sam didn't answer directly. "When Mom got better and found out what was happening, she fought like crazy to get me back. Took almost a year." He looked up, his young face fierce with determination. "I promised her we'd never be separated again. So when she got sick this time, I figured out a plan. I go to school, I keep my grades up, I visit her when I can. Nobody needs to know I'm on my own." "How long has this been going on?" "Since February. 3 months. This child had been living in the woods alone through the tail end of winter and early spring, all while attending school and maintaining appearances." "You're very brave," Marcus said, meaning it completely, "and resourceful. But Sam, this isn't sustainable. What happens when—" "I don't need you to tell me what to do," Sam cut in, suddenly defensive. "I've got it handled. Mom's getting better. The doctors say maybe a month more of treatment. Then she can come home." "Where's home?" Marcus asked. "Not here in the woods, surely." Sam hesitated. "We had an apartment in Riverton, but after Mom got sick, we couldn't pay rent. They evicted us. All our stuff's in storage now." Riverton was the next town over, about 15 miles away. "How do you get to the hospital to visit her?" "Bus, mostly. Sometimes I walk 15 miles. Marcus tried to imagine this small boy walking that distance along busy highways just to see his mother. "Sam, let me help you," Marcus said, leaning forward. "Not by calling authorities or anything you don't want, but maybe I could drive you to visit your mom sometimes, or you could stay somewhere safer than the woods." "Like where?" Suspicion colored Sam's voice. "I have a spare room," Marcus offered, surprising himself with the suggestion. "It's nothing fancy, but it's warm and dry." Sam was already shaking his head. "You're a stranger?" "I don't have to be. My wife was a social worker before she passed away. She would never forgive me if I left a kid out here alone." "Your wife died." Something shifted in Sam's expression, a flash of recognition perhaps at the shared experience of loss. Marcus nodded. 2 years ago, cancer." Sam was quiet for a long moment. "My mom has lymphoma. That's a kind of cancer too." "I'm sorry to hear that." "The doctors say her prognosis is good," Sam continued, the medical term sounding odd from a child's mouth. 90% recovery rate for her type. "That's excellent news," Marcus said, feeling a genuine surge of relief. "Yeah," Sam poked at the fire pit with a stick. "So I just need to hang on until she's better. Then everything goes back to normal." Marcus didn't have the heart to point out that normal apparently meant an apartment they'd already lost. Instead, he said, "My offer stands, whether it's rides to the hospital or a place to stay, just temporarily, until your mom's well again." Sam studied him intently, as if searching for hidden motives. "Why would you do that for us? You don't." even know us? It was a fair question, one Marcus had been asking himself. Because it's the right thing to do, he said simply. And because I think your mom would rest easier knowing you're safe. At the mention of his mother's peace of mind, something in Sam's expression wavered. I'll think about it, Sam said finally, neither accepting nor rejecting Marcus's offer. It was more than Marcus had expected. Fair enough, no pressure. They sat in silence for a few minutes, the forest growing darker around them. Finally, Marcus stood. I should head back before it's completely dark. Will you be at the store tomorrow? Sam shrugged. Maybe. If you come around 7:30, I could make you a hot meal in the break room. Nothing fancy, just sandwiches or soup. I've got food, Sam said, gesturing toward the supplies Marcus had been bringing. I know, but a hot meal might be nice for a change. Another shrug, but Marcus thought he detected a flicker of interest. He left the new supplies and headed back through the woods, his mind churning with everything he'd learned. Sam didn't show up the next day, or the day after. On the third day, just as Marcus was losing hope, the bell above the door jingled at precisely 7:30 p.m., and Sam slipped inside. He looked cleaner than usual, his hair damp, as though recently washed, perhaps. At school. You came, Marcus said, unable to hide his smile. Sam hovered near the door. You said something about food? Right this way. Marcus led him to the small break room and gestured for him to sit. I've got tomato soup and grilled cheese. That work for you? Sam nodded, his eyes darting around the room as though cataloging. Exits. As Marcus heated the soup and prepared the sandwiches, he kept his movements calm and predictable. Like approaching a wounded animal, he thought. How's school going? He asked, setting the food in front of Sam. Fine. Sam took a cautious bite of the sandwich, then another with more enthusiasm. What grade are you in? 7th. After a moment, Sam added, I'm good at math and science. That's great. Those were my worst subjects in school. A ghost of a smile flitted across Sam's face. What were you good at? English, history, anything with reading, really. Sam nodded, focused on his meal. He ate with the careful precision of someone who'd learned not to waste a crumb, finishing every drop of soup. There's more if you're still hungry, Marcus offered. Sam hesitated, then nodded. As Marcus prepared a second sandwich, the boy asked, How come you believe me about my mom and everything? The question caught Marcus off guard. Should I not believe you? Most adults think kids lie about everything. Marcus considered this, as he flipped the sandwich in the pan. I guess I'd rather trust you and be wrong than not trust you and be wrong. Sam seemed to accept this, falling silent again until he'd finished his second helping. When both bowl and plate were empty, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden carving, a miniature fox, even more detailed than the one he'd left at the camp. Here, he said, pushing it across the table. For the food. Marcus's throat tightened with unexpected emotion. Sam, you don't need to pay me for meals. It's not payment, it's a thank you. Sam's tone made it clear the distinction was important to him. In that case, I accept. It's beautiful. Marcus picked up the carving, admiring the intricate details. Your grandfather taught you very well. A flicker of pride crossed Sam's face. He used to say that patient hands can make anything. Wise man. When Sam left that evening, Marcus gave him a small backpack containing more supplies and a prepaid cell phone. Just for emergencies, he explained. My number's already programmed in. Though Sam accepted the backpack, Marcus wasn't sure if he'd actually used the phone. Still, it felt like progress. Over the next week, a tentative routine developed. Sam would appear at the store around 7:30, joining Marcus for a meal in the break room. Their conversations remained largely superficial. School subjects, the weather, safe topics that didn't probe too deeply into Sam's situation. Elaine watched these interactions with cautious approval. He's warming up to you, she observed one afternoon as they worked together. But Marcus, you know this is just a temporary solution, right? That boy needs a stable home. I know, Marcus sighed. I'm working on it. He's supposed to visit his mother this weekend. I offered to drive him. And, he agreed, surprisingly, yes. Elaine's expression softened. You're getting attached to him. It wasn't a question, and Marcus didn't bother denying it. He reminds me of myself at that age, lost, trying to be tougher than he feels. Just be careful, Elaine warned. If his mother really is recovering, they'll need more help than just meals and rides. And if she isn't, she let the sentence hang unfinished. One step at a time, Marcus said, though the same concerns had been keeping him awake at night. Later that evening, as Sam was finishing his meal, Marcus broached the subject. "Still okay for me to drive you to see your mom on Saturday?" Sam nodded, though tension immediately appeared in his shoulders. "What time does visiting hours start?" 1 o'clock, Sam said. But what?" Sam set down his fork. "If you meet my mom, you have to promise not to tell her about this." He gestured vaguely, encompassing his situation. "She thinks I'm staying with a friend from school. If she knew I was in the woods, she'd worry herself sick. Literally." Marcus hesitated. Lying to a sick mother about her child's welfare felt wrong on every level. But forcing the truth might destroy the fragile trust he'd built with Sam. "I promised not to volunteer any information," he said carefully. "But Sam, if she asked me directly where you're staying, I won't lie to her." Saturday arrived with clear skies and mild temperatures. Marcus had closed the store for the afternoon, something he rarely did, and waited in the parking lot, checking his watch periodically. At precisely noon, Sam emerged from the woods, wearing his cleanest clothes and carrying a small gift bag. "What's that?" Marcus asked, as Sam climbed into the passenger seat. "Just something I made for Mom." Sam clutched the bag protectively. "She likes birds." The drive to Riverton Memorial Hospital took about 25 minutes. Sam grew increasingly quiet as they approached, his fingers nervously tapping against his knee. "Nervous?" Marcus asked gently. "No," Sam replied too quickly, then sighed. "Maybe a little. She looked really bad last time." "Cancer treatments are tough," Marcus said, memories of Caroline's final months surfacing unbidden. "But they're helping her get better." Sam nodded, staring out the window. "I keep telling myself that." The hospital was a modern 6-story building with extensive grounds. Marcus followed Sam's directions to the oncology wing, where they signed in at a reception desk. "Samuel Mitchell here to see Sarah Mitchell," Sam told the receptionist with practiced confidence. The woman smiled warmly. "Of course, Sam. Your mom's been asking when you'd arrive." She glanced at Marcus questioningly. "This is Mr. Green," Sam explained. "He's a friend, giving me a ride today." The receptionist's expression shifted subtly as she looked at Marcus. "I see. Nice of you to help out." Something in her tone made Marcus wonder if she suspected Sam's situation wasn't as straightforward as it appeared. Before he could dwell on it, Sam was leading him down a corridor to a room near the end of the hall. "Mom?" Sam called softly, poking his head through the doorway. "Sammy!" A weak but warm voice responded, "Come in, sweetie." Marcus hung back, giving Sam a moment alone with his mother. Through the partially open door, he could hear their quiet exchange, her questions about school, his carefully crafted answers. After a few minutes, Sam appeared in the doorway again. "Mom wants to meet you," he said, his expression both hopeful and worried. Sarah Mitchell was clearly in the middle of aggressive treatment. Her head was wrapped in a colorful scarf, her face gaunt. But her eyes, the same deep brown as Sam's, were alert and intelligent. She was sitting up in bed, an IV attached to her arm, several machines monitoring her condition. "So, you're Marcus," she said, extending a thin hand. "Sam says you own the grocery store where he shops." "That's right," Marcus confirmed, shaking her hand gently. "It's nice to meet you, though I'm sorry about the circumstances." Sarah nodded. "Cancer isn't how I planned to spend my spring, but the doctors say I'm responding well to treatment." She glanced at her son with unmistakable love. "And this one has been so brave through everything." Sam flushed, looking at the floor. "I brought you something, Mom." He handed her the gift bag. Sarah's face lit up as she removed a beautifully carved wooden bird in flight. "Oh, Sammy, it's perfect, just like the ones Grandpa used to make." "I used his tools," Sam said, pride evident in his voice. "Remembered what he taught me." Marcus watched their interaction, noticing the ease between them, the obvious bond. Whatever difficulties they'd faced, the love between mother and son, was palpable. After admiring the carving, Sarah turned her attention back to Marcus. "Sam tells me you've been kind to him, giving him rides, helping out." "He's a great kid," Marcus said truthfully. "It's been no trouble." Sarah studied him with surprising intensity for someone so ill. "And how exactly did you two meet?" Sam's been a bit vague on the details. The moment Marcus had been dreading had arrived. He glanced at Sam, whose eyes pleaded silently. "Sam's been coming to my store for a while," Marcus said carefully. "We got to talking one day when he was looking for art supplies for his carvings. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either." Sarah seemed to sense the omission. "And you just decided to drive him to visit me? That's quite generous for a grocery store owner who barely knows my son." Marcus took a deep breath. "Mrs. Mitchell." "Sarah, please." "Sarah. The truth is, I lost my wife to cancer 2 years ago." When Sam mentioned his mother was in treatment, it hit close to home. "I know how hard these times can be, especially for families." Her expression softened slightly. "I'm sorry about your wife." "Thank you." "Still," she pressed, "it seems like there's more to the story. Sam's been staying with his friend Jason's family while I'm here, but Jason's mother has never mentioned you." Sam went very still beside Marcus. "That's because," Sam began, but was interrupted by a nurse entering the room. "Time for your medication, Mrs. Mitchell," the nurse announced cheerfully, checking the IV line. Sarah's eyes never left Marcus's face. "We'll continue this conversation in a bit," she said, her tone making it clear she wouldn't be distracted. For long, the nurse's arrival gave Marcus a moment to think. The carefully constructed story Sam had been telling his mother was unraveling. Would it be worse to perpetuate the lie or to reveal the harsh reality of Sam's living situation? As the nurse worked, Sarah winced in pain, and Sam immediately moved to her side, taking her hand. The worry in his young face made the decision for Marcus. He couldn't add to this family's burden today. Once the nurse had finished and left the room, Sarah fixed her gaze on Marcus again. The brief interruption seemed to have strengthened her resolve. "Sam, honey, would you mind getting me some ice chips from down the hall?" she asked, her tone gentle but firm. Sam glanced between his mother and Marcus, clearly understanding her intention to speak privately. "Mom, Please, sweetie, my throat's really dry from these meds." With reluctance written across his face, Sam nodded and slipped out of the room. As soon as the door closed behind him, Sarah's expression changed. "Mr. Green, I don't know what's going on, but I know my son. He's hiding something, and for some reason, you're involved." Her voice remained low, but intense. "I'm sick, not stupid. There is no Jason or Jason's family." That was a story Sam made up when I started asking too many questions about his living situation. Marcus shifted uncomfortably under her direct gaze. "Sarah, Before you continue whatever story you two cooked up," she interrupted, "you should know that I've been a single mother since Sam was 3. I've protected him from everything from schoolyard bullies to an abusive ex-boyfriend. If you're taking advantage of my son in any way—" "No," Marcus said firmly. "Nothing like that, I promise you." She studied his face for a long moment. Then, "Tell me the truth. Where is my son living?" Marcus took a deep breath. "He's been staying in the woods behind my store, in a tent." Sarah closed her eyes, pain of a different sort crossing her features. "I was afraid of something like that." When she opened her eyes again, they shimmered with tears. "How long have you known?" "About 2 weeks. I followed him one night when I noticed him always buying the cheapest food and disappearing into the woods. And instead of calling the police or child services, you what? Decided to help him stay homeless." There was an edge to her voice now. "I was going to call authorities," Marcus explained. "But Sam told me about your previous experience with foster care. He was terrified of being separated from you again." Sarah's face crumpled. "That damned Pearson family." She shook her head. "They looked so perfect on paper. I had no idea what gob was happening until Sam finally broke down and told me months later. He said it took almost a year to get him back. 10 months and 17 days, Sarah confirmed bitterly. The longest 10 months of my life. And now he's out there alone, because he's afraid of going through that again." She looked away, wiping at her eyes. I told him I was staying with my friend Diane. He must have called to check and found out I wasn't there. He's an incredibly resourceful kid, Marcus said. Smart, too. He's still going to school, keeping his grades up. A small, sad smile touched Sarah's lips. Always the responsible one, my Sammy. She turned back to Marcus. But what's your role in all this? Why are you helping him? At first, just to make sure he was safe, I left supplies, food. Eventually, we started talking. Recently, he's been coming to the store for hot meals. Marcus hesitated, then added, I offered to let him stay at my house, but he refused. Sarah studied him. And why would you do that for a strange child? It was the same question Sam had asked. My wife, Caroline, was a social worker before she got sick. She believed every child deserved safety and care, regardless of circumstances. After I found Sam living in those woods, he shrugged. I couldn't walk away. Something in Sarah's expression shifted. She sounds like she was a good woman, the best, Marcus agreed quietly. Before Sarah could respond, the door opened and Sam returned, a cup of ice chips in hand. He took one look at his mother's tear-stained face and Marcus's solemn expression, and froze. You told her, he accused, hurt and betrayal evident in his voice. Sam, Marcus began, you promised. Sam set down the cup with enough force to send ice scattering across the bedside table. Sammy, Sarah called softly, come here. I'm sorry, Mom, Sam said, his voice breaking. I didn't want you to worry. The doctor said stress would make you worse. Oh, honey. Sarah held out her arms, and after a moment's hesitation, Sam went to her, allowing himself to be pulled into a careful embrace, mindful of her EV. You don't need to protect me like this. That's my job. But you're sick, Sam mumbled against her shoulder. I'm getting better, she assured him, and we're going to figure this out together. Over Sam's head, Sarah met Marcus's eyes. Mr. Green, could you give us a few minutes alone? Marcus nodded and stepped out into the corridor. He found a chair in a small waiting area and sat down, emotionally drained. Through the window he could see spring sunshine bathing the hospital grounds, so at odds with the heaviness in his chest. A few minutes stretched into 30, then nearly an hour. Marcus considered leaving. Perhaps they needed more time, or maybe they'd prefer he not return at all. But he'd promised Sam a ride back, and whatever happened next, he wanted to honor that commitment. Finally, the door to Sarah's room opened, and Sam emerged. His eyes were red-rimmed, but he looked oddly lighter, as though a great weight had been lifted. Mom wants to talk to you again, he said simply. When Marcus re-entered the hospital room, Sarah was sitting more upright, her expression composed, despite the obvious exhaustion in her eyes. Mr. Green, Marcus, she began, Sam and I have had a long talk. Marcus nodded, taking the chair beside her bed. I understand if you're upset with me. Actually, I want to thank you, Sarah said, surprising him. You've been looking out for my son when I couldn't. She reached for his hand, her grip surprisingly strong for someone so ill. But I also need to ask you for something that goes beyond what anyone should expect from a stranger. What is it? Sarah glanced at Sam, who stood by the window, watching them intently. My treatment will last another 4 weeks, possibly longer. After our conversation, I realize Sam cannot continue living in the woods. He could stay with me, Marcus offered immediately. I meant it when I suggested it before. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. Sarah's relief was palpable. I know it's an enormous imposition. It's not, Marcus assured her. I have the space, and honestly, it would be nice to have some company in that empty house. Sarah studied him for a long moment. Why are you really doing this, Marcus? Most people wouldn't open their home to a child they barely know. The question deserved an honest answer. When my wife died, I felt disconnected from everything. The store was the only thing that got me out of bed in the morning. He paused, finding the right words. Helping Sam has made me feel useful again, connected to something beyond just surviving each day. Sam shifted by the window, clearly uncomfortable with being discussed this way, but remained silent. Sarah nodded slowly. I understand that feeling all too well. She turned to her son. Sam, Could you get me some water, please?" Once Sam had left the room, Sarah's expression grew more serious. "There are some things you should know. Sam has nightmares. Not often. But when they come, they're intense. Leftovers from his time in that foster home. I'll be prepared," Marcus promised. "And he's fiercely independent, sometimes to a fault. He'll try to take care of everything himself rather than ask for help." Marcus smiled slightly. "I've noticed." "One more thing," Sarah added, her voice dropping. "If anything happens to me—" "Sarah, you're going to be fine," Marcus interrupted gently. "Probably," she agreed, "but cancer has a way of teaching you to prepare for all scenarios. If the worst happens, Sam has no other family. His father abandoned us before he was even born, and my parents are gone." The weight of what she was implying hung in the air between them. Before Marcus could respond, the door opened and Sam returned with the water. "Sam," Sarah said, "Marcus has agreed to let you stay with him until I'm well enough to come home." Sam's eyes darted to Marcus, a mix of emotions crossing his young face. "For real?" "For real," Marcus confirmed. "The spare room is yours for as long as you need it." "But all my stuff, we'll get it from the woods," Marcus assured him. "And anything else you need." Sam fell silent, processing this sudden change in his situation. Finally, he looked at his mother. "What about school? It's too far from his house." "Actually," Marcus said, "there's a middle school just 2 blocks from my place. I checked while I was waiting outside." Sam's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "You checked? When?" "I may have looked into it last week," Marcus admitted, "just in case." Sarah smiled, the first genuine smile Marcus had seen from her. It seems Marcus has been planning ahead. The rest of the visit passed in discussion of logistics. When Sam would move his things, how often they'd visit Sarah, what paperwork might be needed for the school transfer. By the time the nurse came to announce the end of visiting hours, a tentative plan had formed. "I'll see you Wednesday," Sarah told Sam as they prepared to leave. "And you'll call me every night before bed?" "Promise," Sam said, hugging her carefully. Sarah caught Marcus's eye over her son's shoulder. "Thank you," she mouthed silently. The drive back was quiet, Sam lost in thought as he stared out the window. Finally, as they neared the store, he spoke. "I need to get my stuff from the woods. We can do that tomorrow," Marcus suggested. "It's getting dark." Sam shook his head stubbornly. "I need my school things for Monday." Marcus recognized the determination in his voice. "All right, but I'm coming with you." Together, they gathered Sam's belongings from the tent. His school backpack, the carefully organized crates of clothes and supplies, the wooden carvings he'd been working on. Marcus was struck again by the orderliness of it all. How this child had created a semblance of normalcy in such extraordinary circumstances. "Is this everything?" Marcus asked as they packed the last items into his car. Sam looked around the small clearing that had been his home for months. "Almost." He walked to the edge of the camp and knelt beside a small mound of earth marked with a ring of stones. From his pocket, he withdrew one of his carved birds and placed it carefully on top. "What's that?" Marcus asked quietly. "A place to remember my grandpa," Sam said, his voice thick. "He taught me about the woods, how to survive. I talked to him. Sometimes, when things get hard," the simple honesty of it touched Marcus deeply. "We can come back to visit," he offered, "whenever you want." Sam nodded, taking one last look around. "I guess I'm ready now." Sam's first night in Marcus's house was marked by an awkward silence. The spare room, untouched since Caroline's parents had visited 2 Christmases ago, felt both too large and too small for the boy and his few possessions. Bathrooms across. "The hall," Marcus explained, hovering in the doorway, as Sam carefully arranged his clothes in the dresser. "Kitchen's open any time you're hungry. And, let me know if you need anything else." Sam nodded without looking up. "Thanks." Marcus lingered a moment longer, then retreated downstairs, giving the boy space to adjust. He found himself straightening the living room, suddenly conscious of the layer of dust on the bookshelves, the stack of magazines that had accumulated on the coffee table. How long had it been since he'd really looked at his own home? The next morning, Marcus woke to the surprising smell of coffee. Downstairs, he found Sam at the kitchen table, already dressed, a textbook open before him. "You made coffee?" Marcus asked, surprised. "Hope that's okay." "I couldn't sleep much." Sam glanced up briefly. "Mom always says coffee helps her think." "It's fine," Marcus assured him, pouring himself a cup. "Though maybe we should limit you to 1 cup. Pretty strong stuff for a kid." A flicker of a smile crossed Sam's face. "Mom says that too." The weekend passed in a similar fashion, polite but distant interactions as they circled each other, learning the rhythms of cohabitation. By Monday morning, they'd established a tentative routine. Marcus would drop Sam at his current school before opening the store, and Sam would take the bus to the shopping center after classes. "I called the middle school near my house," Marcus told him over breakfast. "We can go tour it tomorrow afternoon if you want, see if it would be a good fit for the rest of the school year." Sam pushed his cereal around the bowl. "I like my school now." "I know, but it's pretty far, almost an hour by bus." "I don't mind." Sam's expression grew stubborn. "I have friends there, and the science teacher is helping me with a special project." Marcus recognized the fear of change beneath the resistance. "Tell you what, let's just visit the other school, see what it's like. If you still prefer to stay at your current school, we'll make it work somehow." Sam seemed mollified by this compromise. "Okay." The morning routine went smoothly until they arrived at Sam's school. As Marcus pulled up to the drop-off area, a woman in a dark pantsuit approached the car, accompanied by the school principal. "Mr. Mitchell," she called as Sam opened the door. Sam froze, 1 foot on the pavement. "Yes, I'm Ms. Winters from Childs Protective Services. Could you and your driver please come inside for a moment?" Marcus felt his stomach drop. Beside him, Sam's face had gone pale. "What's this about?" Marcus asked, stepping out of the car. "And you are?" Ms. Winters asked, her expression professionally neutral. "Marcus Green. I'm a friend of Sam's family." The principal, a balding man with wire-rimmed glasses, gestured toward the building. "Let's continue this conversation in my office, shall we?" Sam shot Marcus a panicked look as they followed the adults inside. Once in the office, Ms. Winters wasted no time. "We received a report that Samuel Mitchell's living situation may be irregular," she explained, opening a folder on the desk. "According to our record, Sam's mother is currently hospitalized at Riverton Memorial. Is that correct, Sam?" Sam nodded silently, his hands gripping the edges of his chair. "And who is your current legal guardian while your mother is receiving treatment?" Before Sam could answer, Marcus stepped in. "I am, as of this weekend. Sarah Mitchell, Sam's mother, asked me to look after Sam temporarily. I have her written permission." He reached for his wallet, producing the hastily drafted note Sarah had written at the hospital, authorizing him to care for Sam in her absence. Ms. Winters examined the note with a skeptical expression. "This isn't a legal guardianship document, Mr. Green." "I'm aware," Marcus said calmly, though his heart was racing. "We're in the process of arranging the proper paperwork. This was an emergency situation." "I see." She turned to Sam. "Samuel, where were you living before this weekend?" Sam's eyes darted to Marcus, silently pleading. "Sam was staying with me occasionally," Marcus said before Sam could speak, "but we made the arrangement permanent this weekend after visiting his mother. It wasn't exactly a lie, but it certainly wasn't the full truth." Marcus could feel sweat forming on his brow as Ms. Winters made notes in her folder. "And what is your relationship?" "To the Mitchell family, Mr. Green?" she asked without looking up. "I'm a family friend." "Funny, Mrs. Mitchell has never mentioned you during our previous interactions." Marcus felt trapped. Any explanation would likely make the situation worse. Unexpectedly, Sam spoke up. "Mr. Green knew my grandpa," he said confidently. "They were friends before Grandpa died. When Mom got sick again, she asked him to help out." Ms. Winters turned her attention to Sam. "Is that true?" Sam met her gaze steadily. "Yes, Mr. Green has been really good to me." Marcus was astonished at Sam's quick thinking and his apparent willingness to lie to protect their arrangement. "Well," Ms. Winters said, closing her folder, "I'll need to verify this with Mrs. Mitchell, and Mr. Green will require proper temporary guardianship paperwork filed within the week." "Of course," Marcus agreed quickly. "In the meantime," she continued, "I'll need to conduct a home inspection. Standard procedure." "When?" Marcus asked, mentally cataloging the state of his house. This afternoon, if possible. Shall we say 4 o'clock? The hours after leaving Sam at school passed in a blur of frantic activity. Marcus called Elaine to cover the store, then raced home to clean and organize. He made up Sam's bed with fresh linens, cleared out old magazines, and hastily dusted surfaces that hadn't seen a cloth in months. At noon, he paused long enough to call Sarah at the hospital. A social worker? Her voice was tight with concern. How did they find out? I don't know, Marcus admitted. Someone at the school must have reported something. But Sarah, they're coming to inspect the house this afternoon. They'll need to talk to you to verify our arrangement. I'll tell them whatever they need to hear, Sarah promised. Sam is not going back into the system, not while I have breath in my body. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Marcus said, though anxiety gnawed at his stomach. I think if we can get the proper guardianship paperwork filed, it'll be okay. I have a friend who's a paralegal. I'll call her right now. By the time Marcus picked Sam up from school, the house was as presentable as he could make it. He'd stocked the refrigerator, set up a desk in Sam's room for homework, and even found some of his old books from childhood to fill the empty shelves. Sam was quiet as they drove home, his face drawn with worry. It's going to be fine, Marcus assured him, though he wasn't entirely convinced himself. Your mom's on board with everything, and the house looks good. What if they don't think you should be taking care of me? Sam asked, voicing the fear they both shared. What if they take me away? They won't, Marcus said firmly. You're not in any danger. You're attending school regularly, and your mom has authorized me to look after you. There's no reason for them to intervene. Sam didn't look reassured. That's what Mom thought last time. Marcus had no answer for that. Instead, he tried to distract Sam by involving him in the final preparations for the home visit. Why don't you set up your room the way you want it, he suggested. Make it look like you're settled in. Sam nodded and disappeared upstairs while Marcus double-checked that he had all the emergency contact information the social worker might ask for. At precisely 4 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Ms. Winters stood on the porch, her expression neutral, as Marcus invited her inside. I've spoken with Mrs. Mitchell, she said without preamble, as she stepped into the living room. She confirms your temporary arrangement, though she seemed hesitant about certain details. Marcus swallowed. It all happened rather quickly. So, it seems. Ms. Winters glanced around, making notes on her clipboard. Is Samuel here? He's upstairs. I'll call him down. The inspection proceeded with excruciating thoroughness. Ms. Winters examined every room, checked the contents of the refrigerator, inspected smoke detectors, and asked Marcus detailed questions about his background, his relationship with the Oil Mitchells, and his daily schedule. Sam answered her questions with careful politeness, though Marcus could see the tension in his shoulders. When asked about his living arrangements before coming to Marcus's house, Sam stuck to the story they'd improvised, that he'd been dividing his time between friends' homes and occasional stays with Marcus until they made the arrangement permanent. Well, Ms. Winters said finally, the home environment seems adequate. She didn't sound entirely convinced. However, Mr. Green, there are legal considerations that must be addressed. Mrs. Mitchell's verbal agreement isn't sufficient for long-term care of a minor. We're working on the proper paperwork, Marcus assured her. Sarah, Mrs. Mitchell, is contacting a paralegal friend today. Good. I'll need those documents by Friday. She handed Marcus a business card. In the meantime, I'll be checking in periodically. Unannounced visits are standard procedure in these cases. After she left, Sam collapsed onto the couch, the brave front he'd maintained during the inspection crumbling. She doesn't believe us. Maybe not entirely, Marcus admitted, sitting beside him. But we haven't done anything wrong, Sam. You're safe, you're cared for, and that's what matters. What if they find out I was living in the woods? They won't. That's behind us now. Marcus hesitated, then added, But Sam, we need to be prepared for more questions. The story about me knowing your grandfather, that was quick thinking. But it could complicate things if they start digging. Sam looked down at his hands. I know, I panicked. It's okay. We'll figure it out. Later that evening, as they ate dinner, Marcus broached a subject he'd been considering since the social worker's visit. "Sam, I've been thinking, while your mom is in treatment, we might need something more formal than the note she wrote." Sam paused, fork halfway to his mouth. "Like what?" "Like temporary guardianship. It would give me legal authority to make decisions about your care, medical treatment if you got hurt, school matters, that sort of thing." "Would that mean you'd be like my dad or something?" Sam asked, clearly uncomfortable with the idea. "No, nothing like that," Marcus assured him quickly. "It would just be a temporary legal arrangement until your mom is well. It might keep the social workers from asking too many questions." Sam considered this, pushing food around his plate. "Would Mom still be my mom?" "Of course. This wouldn't change anything about your relationship with her. It would just give me the legal standing to take care of you while she can't. And when she's better, everything goes back to normal. You and your mom will be together again." Sam nodded slowly. "I need to ask Mom what she thinks." "Absolutely. We can call her right now if you want." For the first time that day, a small smile crossed Sam's face. "Yeah, let's do that." As Marcus dialed the hospital number, he felt a strange mixture of anxiety and hope. This temporary guardianship would protect Sam from the system he feared, but it also represented a level of responsibility Marcus hadn't anticipated when he first followed a thin boy into the woods. The next few days brought a flurry of paperwork and legal consultations. Sarah's paralegal friend helped draft temporary guardianship documents, which Sarah signed during their Wednesday hospital visit. By Friday, everything was properly filed with the court, and Ms. Winters grudgingly acknowledged that the arrangement appeared legitimate. "We'll still be monitoring the situation," she warned as she reviewed the documents in Marcus's living room. "Monthly check-ins at minimum." "We understand," Marcus assured her. "We just want what's best for Sam." With the immediate threat of intervention reduced, a new kind of tension emerged, the day-to-day reality of a bachelor suddenly responsible for a 12-year-old boy. Their awkward dance around each other continued, both trying to be considerate without quite knowing how to bridge the gap between them. Sam was meticulously neat, a habit born from months of managing limited space and resources. He made his bed each morning without prompting, kept his few possessions carefully organized, and insisted on washing his own clothes. "I can do the laundry," Marcus offered one Saturday morning, finding Sam sorting his clothes in the small utility room. "It's no trouble." "I know how to do it," Sam replied, measuring detergent with careful precision. "Mom taught me when I was 8. Marcus leaned against the doorframe. "I'm sure she did. But you don't have to do everything yourself anymore." Sam glanced up, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "I don't want to be a burden." "You're not," Marcus said firmly, "not even close." But the pattern continued. Sam insisted on making his own lunches, cleaning up after himself, and handling his homework without assistance. He rarely asked for anything, and when Marcus bought him new clothes to replace his worn ones, Sam initially refused them. "My old ones are fine," he protested. "They're not that bad." "They're wearing thin at the knees," Marcus pointed out. "And you've grown since you got them. These new ones will fit better." Sam fingered the fabric of the new jeans reluctantly. They must have been expensive. "They were on sale," Marcus lied, hiding the price tags he'd removed earlier. "Besides, growing kids need new clothes. It's just part of life." Slowly, Sam accepted the new items, though Marcus noticed he still wore the old ones when working on his carvings or doing chores. Food became another point of negotiation. Marcus was accustomed to simple bachelor meals, sandwiches, frozen dinners, the occasional pasta dish when he felt ambitious. Sam, it turned out, had more specific preferences. "You don't like lasagna?" Marcus asked one evening, surprised when Sam picked at the frozen dinner he'd heated. "It's okay," Sam said unconvincingly, "just not used to the texture." "What kinds of foods do you and your mom usually eat?" Sam shrugged. "Simple stuff, rice and beans, chicken soup. Mom makes really good stir-fry with whatever vegetables are on sale." The next day, Marcus bought a basic cookbook and ingredients for several simple meals. That evening, he called Sam into the kitchen. "I thought we could try cooking together," he suggested, laying out vegetables on the cutting board. "Nothing fancy, just a stir-fry. You can show me how your mom makes it." Sam approached cautiously. "You want me to help?" "If you'd like to. I'm not much of a cook, to be honest." Caroline always handled that department. A small smile flickered across Sam's face. "Mom says anyone can learn to cook. It's just following directions with food. Sounds like a smart woman, your mom." Together they chopped vegetables, with Sam demonstrating the proper technique for slicing carrots and bell peppers. He seemed to relax as they worked, explaining how his mother had taught him to cook when money was tight, and prepared foods too. "Expensive," she said. "Knowing how to cook means you'll never go hungry as long as you have something basic," Sam explained, carefully measuring rice. "Even if it's just rice and an egg, it's still a meal." The stir-fry turned out better than anything Marcus had made in years. As they sat down to eat, he noticed Sam taking his first bite with genuine enthusiasm. "This is good," Marcus said, surprised at how the simple combination of vegetables, sauce, and rice created something so satisfying. "We put too much ginger," Sam critiqued, though he was already reaching for seconds, "and the carrots could be cut thinner. But it's not bad." Marcus hid a smile at the serious assessment. "We'll do better next time." "Next time, we should try chicken," Sam suggested, then looked startled by his own presumption. "Chicken sounds great," Marcus agreed quickly. "Maybe Saturday? We could make a shopping list together." Sam nodded, returning to his food. The tension in his shoulders had eased slightly, and for the first time since moving in, he initiated conversation. About his day at school without prompting, it was a small breakthrough, but significant. As they cleaned up after dinner, Marcus realized they'd established their first genuine shared activity. Something neither awkward nor obligatory, but simply pleasant. That night, as Marcus passed Sam's room on the way to bed, he noticed the door slightly ajar. Sam sat cross-legged on the floor, carefully working on a new carving by the light of his desk lamp. "Not too late, okay?" Marcus said gently. "School tomorrow." Sam looked up and nodded, just finishing this part. He held up the half-completed carving, the figure of a person beginning to emerge from the wood. It's supposed to be Mom, for when she finishes treatment. "She'll love it," Marcus said, meaning it. "You have a real gift, Sam." 2 weeks passed in relative harmony. The temporary guardianship was officially approved, and Sam had settled into a comfortable routine in Marcus's home. Their cooking experiments continued, with varying degrees of success. Marcus even convinced Sam to try the middle school near the house, which turned out to have an exceptional science program that immediately captured the boys' interest. On Wednesday afternoons and Sunday mornings, they visited Sarah at the hospital. Her condition seemed to be improving gradually. Her face had regained some color, and she had more energy during their visits. "The doctors are cautiously optimistic," she told them during one Sunday visit. "If my blood counts keep improving, I might be able to come home in 3 weeks instead of 4. Sam's face lit up at this news. "Really? That's awesome, Mom!" Sarah smiled, squeezing her son's hand. "Just in time for summer break. We could take that camping trip we talked about last year." Marcus, who had been standing by the window to give them some privacy, felt a strange twinge at this exchange. He was genuinely happy about Sarah's improving health, but the reminder that their current arrangement was temporary left him with an unexpected sense of loss. Later that evening, as they drove home from the hospital, Sam was unusually talkative, making plans for his mother's return. "We'll need to find a new apartment," he mused. "Maybe in this neighborhood, so I can stay at the new school. And Mom will need a job, but she's really good with computers, so maybe she could work from home at first." Marcus nodded, encouraging Sam's optimism while wondering how realistic these plans were. Sarah's medical bills would be substantial, and finding affordable housing in this area wouldn't be easy. They were just finishing dinner when the doorbell rang. Marcus wasn't expecting anyone and approached the door with curiosity, which quickly turned to surprise when he saw who stood on his porch. "Diane," he said, opening the door to his sister. "What are you doing here?" Diane Green, 3 years younger than Marcus and perpetually put together in a way that made him feel rumpled by comparison, raised an eyebrow. Nice to see you too, brother dear. You missed our monthly dinner yesterday, so I thought I'd check if you were still among the living. She stepped past him into the house, then stopped abruptly at the sight of Sam sitting at the dining table. Oh, I didn't realize you had company. Diane, this is Sam, Marcus said, feeling strangely caught off guard. Sam, this is my sister, Diane. Sam nodded politely but said nothing, his eyes wary as they often were with new adults. Diane's gaze moved from Sam to the two plates on the table, then back to Marcus, questions written all over her face. I'm clearly interrupting. I can come back another time. No, it's fine, Marcus assured her, though he felt Sam's tension from across the room. We were just finishing dinner. Would you like some coffee? In the kitchen, as Marcus prepared coffee, Diane leaned close and whispered, Since when do you have a child living with you? And why am I just finding out about this now? It's a recent arrangement, Marcus explained quietly. Sam's mother is in the hospital for cancer treatment. I'm his temporary guardian until she recovers. Diane's eyebrows shot up. Temporary guardian? Marcus, that's a huge responsibility. How do you even know these people? It's complicated. He briefly explained about discovering Sam in the woods, omitting some details that might paint Sarah in a negative light. He's a good kid, Diane. He needed help, and I was in a position to provide it. His sister studied him with narrowed eyes. This isn't some misguided attempt to fill the void Caroline left, is it? The question stung. No, it's not. It's just the right thing to do. And what happens when his mother recovers? Have you thought about how attached you might get in the meantime? Before Marcus could respond, Sam appeared in the kitchen doorway. I've finished my homework. Is it okay if I go work on my carving now? Of course, Marcus said, grateful for the interruption. We'll be in the living room if you need anything. As Sam headed upstairs, Diane watched him go with a thoughtful expression. Carving? He's incredibly talented with woodwork, makes these amazing small sculptures. In the living room, Marcus showed Diane several of Sam's carvings that he displayed on the mantel. She examined them with genuine admiration. These are remarkable, especially for someone so young, she admitted. He seems settled here. How long has he been staying with you? Almost 3 weeks now. Diane sipped her coffee, her expression softening slightly. You always did have a big heart, Mark, just like Caroline. She paused. But I worry about you. Taking in a child, even temporarily, it's a massive commitment. And when it ends, I know what I'm doing, Marcus said, more firmly than he felt. Sam and his mother need help right now. I can provide it. It's as simple as that. Is it? Diane set down her cup. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're setting yourself up for heartbreak when they inevitably move on with their lives. You're not his father, Marcus. The words hit harder than she probably intended. I'm well aware of that, he said quietly. I'm just trying to give him stability until his mother recovers. And what if she doesn't? Diane asked, lowering her voice further. Cancer is unpredictable. You know that better than most. What happens to Sam then? Marcus had asked himself the same question during sleepless nights. We'll cross that bridge if we come to it. For now, Sarah's prognosis is good. Diane sighed. Just be careful, okay? I don't want to see you hurt again. She glanced toward the stairs, or that boy for that matter. After Diane left, Marcus found himself standing in the hallway, looking at the framed photos he'd largely ignored for the past 2 years. Him and Caroline on their wedding day, hiking in the mountains, laughing at a family barbecue. Would she have approved of what he was doing? He liked to think she would. Diane's visit left Marcus unsettled, raising questions he'd been avoiding. What would happen when Sarah was released from the hospital? Where would she and Sam live? How would they manage financially? The apartment they'd lost, the possessions in storage, rebuilding a life from scratch would be daunting for anyone, let alone a single mother recovering from cancer. After several restless nights, Marcus made an appointment with his family lawyer, Arthur Brennan, who had handled Caroline's will and their property matters over the years. Temporary guardianship is straightforward enough, Arthur said, reviewing the documents Marcus had brought to his office. But you're asking about something more permanent? Marcus shifted in his chair. Not exactly permanent, more like a contingency plan in case Sarah's recovery takes longer than expected, or if they need a place to stay afterward. Arthur leaned back, studying Marcus over his reading glasses. I've known you a long time, Marcus. This isn't like you, taking in strangers, making yourself legally responsible for a child. They're not strangers anymore, Marcus said simply. The lawyer nodded thoughtfully. I can draft an agreement that would allow Sarah and Sam to live in your home for a specified period after her release from the hospital. As for longer-term arrangements, he tapped his pen against the desk. There are options, but they depend on what you're envisioning. That was the problem. Marcus wasn't sure what he was envisioning. He only knew he couldn't bear the thought of Sam returning to precarious circumstances. Just prepare the paperwork. For a temporary housing agreement, he decided. We can discuss the rest with Sarah when she's feeling stronger. That afternoon, Marcus picked Sam up from school and found him unusually excited. I got an A+ on my science project, Sam announced, waving a graded paper as he climbed into the car. Mr. Reynolds said it was the best in the class. That's fantastic. Marcus examined the paper, an elaborate report on forest ecosystems, complete with Sam's detailed illustrations of woodland plants and animals. This is really impressive work. Mom's going to be so proud, Sam said, his face glowing. Can we call her when we get home? Of course. In fact, I was thinking we could bring her a special dinner for our visit tomorrow. Maybe that chicken soup you said she likes? Sam's smile widened. She'd love that. Can we make it tonight? The evening passed pleasantly as they prepared the soup together, Sam carefully instructing Marcus on his mother's recipe. As they worked, Marcus considered how to broach the subject of their future living arrangements. Sam, he began as they packaged the finished soup, I've been thinking about when your mom comes home from the hospital. Sam looked up, instantly alert. What about it? Well, you mentioned you'd lost your apartment. I was wondering what plans you and your mom had for afterward. Sam's expression clouded. Mom said not to worry about it, that she'd figure something out. I'm sure she will, Marcus said carefully. But I wanted you to know that you're both welcome to stay here while she gets back on her feet. If you want to, that is. Sam stared at him, surprise evident on his face. You'd let Mom stay here too? Of course. The house is plenty big enough, and it would give her time to recover fully before having to worry about finding a new place, getting a job. All of that. Sam seemed to consider this carefully. That would be really nice, he said finally. But Mom's really independent. She might not want to accept. Well, the offer's there, Marcus said, keeping his tone casual. Just something to think about. Later that night, Marcus called Sarah to discuss his idea. Her response was guarded but grateful. That's incredibly generous, Marcus, she said, her voice tired but warm. But I can't impose on you like that. It's not an imposition, he assured her. The house has been too empty since Caroline died. Having you and Sam here would be nice. There was a long pause before Sarah spoke again. Let me think about it, okay? It's a big decision. The next day, Marcus left work early to meet with a financial advisor. He'd been reviewing his savings, calculating what it might take to help Sarah and Sam get reestablished. The numbers were sobering, but manageable. If he was careful, he could offer meaningful assistance without jeopardizing his own financial security. That evening, as he prepared to pick up Sam from his after-school science club, Ms. Winters made an unexpected appearance at the store. Mr. Green, she greeted him formally. I'm conducting a follow-up assessment. Is this a convenient time? Actually, I was just heading out to pick up Sam, Marcus explained. Could we reschedule for tomorrow? This won't take long, she insisted, opening her ever-present folder. I've received concerning information that I need to address immediately. Marcus felt a chill. What kind of information? It's been brought to my attention that you have no prior relationship with the Mitchell family despite your claims to the contrary. In fact, it appears you only met Samuel shortly before assuming guardianship. The accusation hung in the air. Between them, Marcus considered denying it, but something in Ms. Winters' expression told him she already knew the truth. Who told you that? He asked, though he had a sinking suspicion. That's confidential, she replied. What matters is whether it's true, Marcus sighed. Yes, it's true. I met Sam not long before becoming his guardian, but everything else, Sarah's illness, Sam's need for a safe place to stay, her consent to the arrangement, that's all genuine. Ms. Winter's expression remained impassive. Why lie about your relationship to the family? Because I was afraid of exactly this reaction, Marcus admitted. I was worried that if you knew how recently we'd met, you'd assume something inappropriate and take Sam away. I couldn't let that happen. Not after what he'd been through in foster care before. She made a note in her folder. Mr. Green, providing false information to Child Protective Services is a serious matter. It calls into question your fitness as a guardian. Marcus felt the ground shifting beneath him. What happens now? I'll need to reevaluate Samuel's living situation, Ms. Winters replied. That may include temporary placement elsewhere while we conduct a more thorough investigation. You can't take him, Marcus said, his voice rising. He's safe. He's doing well in school. His mother is recovering. Moving him now would only traumatize him further. I understand your concern, Mr. Green, but I have protocols to follow. She closed her folder. I'll need to speak with Samuel. Today? Is he at home? No, he's at science club. I was about to pick him up. Marcus glanced at his watch, anxiety mounting. Look, can we at least wait until we've spoken with Sarah? She's expecting us for a visit tomorrow. You can verify everything with her directly. Ms. Winters considered this. I'll accompany you to collect Samuel now, and we'll discuss next steps at your home. I can speak with Mrs. Mitchell by phone, if necessary. The drive to Sam's school was tense. Marcus's mind raced, trying to formulate a plan. Who could have reported them? Diane seemed the most likely candidate, though he couldn't imagine his sister deliberately trying to separate Sam from his care. When they arrived at the school, the science club was just letting out. Sam spotted Marcus immediately and hurried. Over, his smile fading as he noticed Ms. Winters. What's going on? He asked, his gaze darting between them. Ms. Winters needs to speak with us, Marcus explained, trying to keep his voice calm. Let's head home and we can sort everything out. But Sam wasn't fooled. You're taking me away, aren't you? He accused, backing away from Ms. Winters. I knew this would happen. I told Mom it wouldn't work. Samuel, no one's taking you anywhere. Yet, Ms. Winters said, reaching for his arm. We just need to... Sam darted away from her touch, his backpack sliding off his shoulder as he turned and ran across the school grounds toward the street. Sam! Marcus called, breaking into a run. After him, but Sam was quick and fueled by fear. He sprinted across the parking lot, dodged between cars, and disappeared into the wooded park that bordered the school property. Marcus reached the edge of the trees moments later, scanning desperately for any sign of which direction Sam had taken. The park was extensive, with numerous trails winding through dense forest. Samuel, he shouted, his voice echoing among the trees. Please come back. We can work this out. Only silence answered him. Behind him, Ms. Winters approached, her professional composure slightly rumpled. This is exactly why proper procedures exist, she said, pulling out her phone. I'm calling the police to assist in locating him. No, Marcus said firmly. No police. You'll only scare him more. Mr. Green, a child is missing. He's not missing. He's hiding because he's terrified of being put back in the system. Marcus took a deep breath. Give me 2 hours to find him myself. If I can't, then call whoever you need to. Ms. Winters hesitated, then reluctantly nodded. 2 hours, but I'm coming with you. They searched the park methodically, Marcus calling Sam's name every few minutes. As darkness began to fall, a spring storm rolled in, bringing cold rain that soon had them both soaked. We need to call for help, Ms. Winters insisted, as thunder rumbled overhead. This weather is dangerous, and it's getting too dark to see, Marcus knew she was right, but the thought of Sam alone in the storm, believing he'd been betrayed, was unbearable. Just a little longer, he pleaded. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the trail ahead, and Marcus caught a glimpse of something that made his heart skip, a familiar path marker. A small pile of stones arranged in a pattern he recognized from the woods behind his store. This way, he said with renewed determination, moving deeper into the forest. The trail grew steeper, winding up a rocky hillside. In the rain and darkness, the footing was treacherous. Marcus slipped several times, his shoes caked with mud. Samuel, he called again, his voice nearly lost in the pounding rain. "Sam, please answer me." A faint sound made him pause, not a voice, but a whimper of pain. Marcus scrambled toward it, using his phone's flashlight to illuminate the way. In a small hollow beneath an overhanging rock, he found Sam huddled in a ball, soaked and shivering. His face was scratched, and he clutched his ankle. "Sam," Marcus breathed, relief washing over him. "Thank God." Sam looked up, his expression a mixture of pain and wariness. "Go away. She's going to take me." "No one's taking you anywhere," Marcus promised, kneeling beside him. "What happened to your ankle?" "I fell," Sam admitted. "It really hurts." Marcus gently examined the injury, which was already swelling. "I think it's sprained. Can you stand?" Sam tried but gasped in pain. "No." "Then I'll carry you." Without hesitation, Marcus scooped Sam into his arms, cradling him against his chest. "I can't go back," Sam said, his voice breaking. "Please, Marcus, don't let them take me." "I won't," Marcus promised fiercely. "Whatever it takes, we'll keep you safe." The journey back down the hillside was slow and precarious. Sam clung to Marcus's neck, his small body trembling with cold and fear. When they finally reached the main trail, Miss Winters hurried toward them, relief evident on her face despite the rain plastering her hair to her forehead. "Is he hurt?" she asked, her professional tone softened by genuine concern. "Sprained ankle," Marcus replied. "He needs to get warm and dry immediately." "I've called an ambulance." "No," Sam interrupted, his grip on Marcus tightening. "No hospitals." Ms. Winters looked like she might argue, but something in Marcus's expression stopped her. "Fine. My car is closer than yours. I'll drive you both home." Once they reached Marcus's house, he carried Sam inside and settled him on the couch, wrapping him in dry blankets, while Ms. Winters hovered uncertainly in the doorway. "I'm calling his mother," Marcus said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Right now? And then we're going to sort this out once and for all." 6 months later, Marcus stood in the doorway of his store, watching, as Sam carefully arranged a display of his wooden carvings on a small table near the register. The collection had grown impressive: birds in flight, forest animals, and intricate nature scenes that customers had begun purchasing as fast as Sam could create them. "Those new owl designs are going to sell out by the weekend," Marcus predicted, smiling as Sam adjusted the position of a particularly detailed piece. "Mom thinks I should raise the prices," Sam replied, glancing up. "She says I'm undervaluing my work." "She's probably right. You're a professional artist now." Sam grinned, the expression coming easily these days. At 13, he'd grown taller, his face losing some of its childish roundness. The haunted look in his eyes had faded, replaced by a quiet confidence. So much had changed since that stormy night when Marcus had carried him, injured and terrified, from the woods. The confrontation with Ms. Winters had led to an emergency hearing with a family court judge, where Sarah, speaking via video call from her hospital bed, had passionately defended their arrangement. "Marcus Green saved my son," she'd told the judge, her thin face fierce with determination. "When the system failed us, when I had nowhere to turn, he stepped in without hesitation. He gave Sam safety, stability, and respect. If that's not the definition of a worthy guardian, I don't know what is." The judge, impressed by Sarah's advocacy and the obvious bond between Marcus and Sam, had not only upheld the temporary guardianship, but expedited the process for Sarah to regain full custody once she was released from the hospital. As for Ms. Winters, she'd eventually acknowledged that, while the situation was unorthodox, it was clearly working. Her monthly check-ins had become increasingly perfunctory before stopping altogether. "Marcus?" Sam's voice pulled him from his memories. "Mom's appointment is at 4. Should we close early today?" "Definitely," Marcus agreed. "It's not every day you get final test results." Sarah's recovery had been steady, but challenging. After her release from the hospital 3 months ago, she'd moved into Marcus's house as planned, taking the guest room downstairs while continuing outpatient treatment. The arrangement had evolved naturally, with Sarah gradually taking on household responsibilities as her strength returned, and Marcus providing transportation to medical appointments. Together, they'd created something none of them had anticipated, a functioning family unit, built on mutual respect and shared experiences. Rather than blood ties, as Marcus locked up the store, his phone rang. It was Sarah. "The doctor called," she said without preamble, her voice trembling slightly. "They want to see me sooner. Can you come now?" "We're on our way," Marcus assured her, motioning for Sam to hurry. They found Sarah waiting on the porch, her face unreadable. The drive to the oncology center was tense, none of them voicing the fear that hung in the air, that the early appointment might signal bad news. In the doctor's office, they sat together, a united front, as Dr. Patel reviewed Sarah's file. "Mrs. Mitchell," he began, looking up with a smile that instantly dissolved their anxiety, "I'm pleased to inform you that your 6-month scans show no evidence of disease. You are officially in remission." Sam let out a whoop of joy, grabbing his mother's hand. Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she squeezed both Sam's hand and Marcus's. "The treatment worked?" she asked, needing confirmation. "Completely," Dr. Patel assured her. "Of course, we'll continue monitoring you regularly, but for now, you can return to normal activities without restrictions." The celebration dinner that night was Sam's idea, a home-cooked feast featuring all of Sarah's favorite foods. As they ate, the conversation turned inevitably to the future. "I got the job," Sarah announced, setting down her fork. "The web development position at Mercer Tech. I start next month." "Mom, that's amazing," Sam exclaimed. "Do they know about your awesome coding skills?" Sarah laughed. "I may have impressed them with my portfolio. The salary is good, and they offer flexible hours. Plus, it's only a 15-minute drive from here." Marcus nodded, genuinely happy for her success, while trying to ignore the implication that hung unspoken. With financial independence would come the natural next step of finding their own place. "We should start looking at apartments nearby," Sarah continued, as if reading his thoughts. "Something close enough that Sam can stay at his school." Marcus cleared his throat. "Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you both about that." He set down his glass. "I know the original plan was temporary, but this arrangement has worked well, hasn't it?" "For all of us?" Sarah studied him carefully. "It has." "Then maybe it doesn't need to end," Marcus suggested. "This house is too big for just me. You and Sam bring it to life in a way it hasn't been since Caroline died. If you wanted to stay, not as guests, but as family, I'd like that." The word family hung in the air between them, weighted with possibility. Sam looked between the adults, his expression hopeful. "I vote yes," he said simply. Sarah's eyes met Marcus's across the table. "It wouldn't be conventional. Neither were any of the decisions that brought us here," Marcus pointed out. "But they were right." Later that evening, as Sam showed Sarah his latest carving project in the small workshop Marcus had helped him set up in the garage, Marcus stood watching them from the doorway. Their heads were bent together, Sarah's hand resting on her son's shoulder as he explained his technique. The sight filled Marcus with a quiet joy he hadn't experienced in years. Whatever label the world might put on them, guardian and ward, friends, chosen family, the bond they'd formed was real and precious. Outside, twilight was settling over the trees where Sam's journey had begun. Those woods, once a place of desperate survival, had become simply a place for weekend hikes and inspiration for Sam's art. The path that had led a lonely boy to a lonely man had somehow, against all odds, guided them both home. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories for more tales that inspire and uplift.